Bwrdd pawb. A croeso i'r cyfarfod Bwrdd Addysg a Gwella Iechyd Cymru. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this our open board session. I've had apologies for absence from Ruth Hall and Jill Lewis. And I'd like to welcome today Lisa Llewellyn, who from Monday will be our Director of Education, Nurse and Health Professions. So you're very welcome, Lisa. I'd just like to confirm declarations of interest, please. Are there any interests that need to be declared that are not already declared on our register of interests? I haven't had any notification, but is there anything specific on this agenda that people want the opportunity to declare an interest? Okay, I note there aren't any. Thank you very much. I'm now going to go to the draft minutes of the board meeting that we held on the 25th of March. And first of all, I'd go through it for accuracy, please. So if you can help me with this, guys, page 1, page 2, page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Members happy for me to, in terms of accuracy?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Thank you. Could we please move to 1.5, the action log, please? And the action log is there. Are there any actions yet to be completed, David?
No, they're either completed on the agenda or there's a full update provided on the action log in terms of where we are.
Okay, and in terms of the annual plan, Nicola?
Thank you, Chair. The action needs to be updated as the final annual plan will be presented to the board at the special board on June the 10th, rather than at the July board as noted on the action log.
Okay, thank you very much. So can I ask people to go back to the minutes, please? So this time I want to take matters arising that have not been covered by the action log and that are not on the substantive agenda for today's meeting. So if you can help me here, please, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10. Are there any issues anyone wishes to raise? Are you content for me to sign these minutes off as an accurate record of our meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I know this is the highlight of people's day, my chair's report. It's there for people to see. We've got a very interesting 5 years ahead. We've got a new government. We've got the challenges of coming through this COVID pandemic and hopefully being able to look forward to a different way of doing business and different sets of challenges. I think everybody is well aware of the vaccination campaign that's been going on, the tremendous effort within the NHS and the opportunities that brings. I really do look forward to a time when more of our work can be based in our TDusky offices. But clearly that'll have to be done carefully and cautiously. But I think all of us will benefit from having contact face-to-face with colleagues. And I think it'll be a new way of working, a more blended way of working going forwards, but I really look forward to that time. And whilst we in Wales and the UK are in a period where COVID-19 appears not to be impacting at such an awful way, I think no one can miss the fact that in areas such as India, it is still a fearsome and troubling situation. And to that extent, I need to be very clear that many of the people working in the NHS and many of our colleagues working in training and trainees, particularly from India and the Asian subcontinent, they will have families and connections back home, and it'll be a very worrying time. And I just want to put on record that our hearts and thoughts go out to them, and I'm glad that we've been able to offer openly support. In terms of our board members, Kerry left us to become Vice Chair of Cardiff last month, and I can now confirm that I'm writing to the Minister to start the process of finding a replacement board member. I'll also be initiating approval for an associate board member, and I look to that role to actually look to supporting the development of people from different backgrounds to actually consider becoming independent board members and give some support. You'll see that the board activity has been interesting and has covered a very broad range of activities. I'd like to commend the staff event, which was a focus on the Welsh language. And I think the one word I would describe the whole thing was joyous. And I think it spoke well of our intrinsic culture and values as an organisation. You'll see from the report as well that John has been representing us at the Vice Chairs group, and between us we have been taking HEIW agenda issues into those national meetings of the chairs and the vice chairs. I have my personal appraisal with the Minister arranged for the beginning of July, and no doubt I'll take that opportunity to highlight to the new Minister the contribution that HEIW is making to the NHS. Finally, I'd like to say welcome to Lisa Llewellyn, but I'd also like to say a huge thank you to Angela Parry, who's been our Interim Director of Nursing, and formally put on record our gratitude and our respect for the work she has done and the part she has played in HEIW through a period which can, I think it's an historic period, Angela. It's not been the normal run of events, but on behalf of everyone here at the board, I'd like to thank you so much for your contribution and your commitment.
Thank you, Chair. It's been a privilege to join colleagues during the past year. So thank you for your thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so the staff in HEIW, I have had the opportunity to meet quite a few of the teams over the last few weeks, but it was a real pleasure to meet the team of people from within HEIW and from shared services that have been working on a major piece of work on the commissioning of education going forward. And as I've said in my report, that is such a huge effect that has not just on education, it has an effect on opportunity, diversity, inclusion, and the economy going forward. I need to bring your attention to Chair's action, and that were taken in 3 matters. One is the Health Education England invoice, and I'm asking you to ratify that Chair's action, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. The Chair's action involved in hosting of the Chief Nursing Officer for Wales, and I'm asking you again to ratify that Chair's action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then the Chair's action for the appointment of the Director of Nurse and Health Profession Education. I'm asking you please to ratify that decision.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'll now hand over to Alex for the Chief Exec's report.
Chair. I'm not going to go through the report in detail, but happy to take any questions about any of the items covered. Just a few things to update since we produced the report. Obviously, we've got a new ministerial team in Welsh Government, and I've had the opportunity to be involved in meetings with both the Minister and the Deputy Minister for Mental Health over the course of the last week. So the Minister for Health attended the NHS Executive Board for a short initial chat last week, which was really helpful in understanding where her efforts and priorities are going to be. And clearly the focus is on the fact that we are still dealing with the pandemic, and the focus on reset and recovery is really key, and also really encouraging us to be imaginative and innovative in how we take forward those plans for the future, building on what we've seen come to the fore really during the last 15 months or so. And as you know, I sit on the Ministerial Oversight and Delivery Board for Together for Mental Health, and Lynn Neagle has now taken over the chairing of that board, which met yesterday. So again, as you know, there's a strong focus there on developing the mental health workforce plan. So the work of HEIW will be very much at the forefront of that board's work. The other thing to note is that we, as an executive team, have our joint executive team with Welsh Government and Andrew Goodall's team coming up on the 8th of June. So we're just finalising the papers and the presentation that we'll be using for that session, and we'll share those with board members when they go in early next week. So this is the first one we've had for quite a while, as you know, because some of these governance arrangements were put on hold during the pandemic, so we haven't had this discussion for probably 18 months. So lots of things that we want to raise with Welsh Government where we need either policy support or investment in order to deliver on some of the commitments in our annual plan. So really trying to make sure that we make the most of the couple of hours that we've got with that team in the coming weeks. Just a few things to note from the report then. The at the risk of embarrassing Angela once again, just to also put my thanks on record for Angela's support. I think that it's been absolutely fantastic from the executive team's perspective, having Angela in the team, and she fitted in from day one, and it's been an absolute joy to work with. So thank you very much for all the work you've done. You've gone well beyond the call of duty, well beyond the contractual arrangement, and you've brought a huge wealth of expertise and experience into the team. So, you know, we were so lucky to find you at that particular time when we were risking losing Stephen. So thank you very much for all your support.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. I think the luck was also mine. Thank you.
And then just on the annual Education Commission and Training Plan, obviously this will be coming back to the board over the course of the next few months. We've started the conversations with NHS peer groups this month. What we've tried to do this year is to use it as an opportunity to, I suppose, take the conversation up to a more strategic level before we get into the details of the numbers. There is such a lot of strategic change happening across all of our education programmes at the moment. Some of which is mentioned in the report as well, but it, you know, also including, for example, the pharmacy standards that we've talked about before as well. So we just felt that it was very important this year to make sure that the conversation around the Education Commission and Training Plan was in that strategic context. So we've had some really productive and informative discussions so far about that. So look forward to bringing that plan back via the Education Committee over the next few months. And then in terms of the update on health professional graduate recruitment, so at the time of writing my report, we were going to bring a written report to you on the board's agenda. So apologies, that's still recorded in my report. In fact, the numbers are changing all of the time. So we decided that we would give you a verbal update today, which Angela would do later on the agenda. And we will circulate a briefing as numbers are starting to become clearer early next week to support that. And then I think that was all. Sorry, yeah, that was all that I was going to mention today, just to highlight the risks and just in terms of the postgraduate education. I know we talked to the board last time about strategic review phase 2. We have had some slippage and some delays in getting that to the stage that we wanted it to be. So Angela, again, is developing some action plans around that to make sure that we can manage that risk down over the next couple of months. And that should be recoverable within this planning year. But just to record that as well for the sake of completeness.
Thank you, Alex. I couldn't find my microphone then. Are there any questions or comments, please, from members for Alex in lieu of Alex's report?
I got my hand up, Chris.
Oh, thank you. I can now see it. Thank you, John.
Alex, only a quick point. I know that Welsh Government are making available additional funds in the context of the NHS recovery from COVID. I think there's monies being available in a number of headings. Mental health is one of them. And you mentioned that we've got plans, obviously, to develop our services. Will we be able to access those funds? And are we in a good place to present good cases to them at the moment?
So I think the purpose of those funds, the extra 100 million that's already been announced, is very much for things that are going to tangibly impact on services in the short term as part of that recovery and reset. And if we've got plans that do directly impact on those things, then those will be considered as part of that. I think a number of the areas that we want to get support on are slightly longer term. But equally, I think, as Welsh Government considers its financial plans for the next couple of years and what resources are going to be available, I think they will be very much, a number of them will be considered as part of that reset and recovery approach. For example, the primary care education and training work that we're doing. We're looking at options for clinical endoscopy training. We're looking at how we take forward occupational health services. We're looking at expanding our digital presence. So I think that's the conversation that we're looking forward to have with Welsh Government and our JET, because the nature of our organisation is quite different from the health boards. Apologies, the more immediate plans they have, just to make sure that we're on the agenda in terms of that additional investment.
Yeah, Thanks very much, Alex.
Any other questions or comments for Alex? Oh, Tina?
Thanks, Chair. Alex, I was just wondering in relation to the Train Work Live campaign, the EU settlement scheme requirements kick in by the 30th of June, and I just wondered whether or not that affects any of our staff, or how we're actually dealing with that with any of our members of staff that are not necessarily employed within HEIW but around the NHS. It's just seeking assurance that we're okay with that. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that, Chairman, but Julie's looking like she wants to.
I think Julie's best placed to pick that one up for you. Julie?
Yeah, thank you. So it doesn't have a direct impact on our own staff. There is a national piece of work where individual organisations are looking at this at the moment, and I don't have any feel at this point for how big an impact that would be, but I'm happy to provide a note after the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'm asking that we note the Chief Exec's report then. Can I move on now to agenda item 3.1, which is indeed the update on health professional graduate recruitment. So here you are, Angela. This is your swan song.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, 2 items for me. At this meeting, this is the first of those. So this is a verbal report, and I'd just like to echo Alex's apologies that this isn't a written report. The numbers are still fluid, and we need to just get a little bit more clarity. So that will be following shortly. So the purpose of the verbal update is to provide people on the call today with an update as to where we are with the 2021 position for the main allied health professional and healthcare science programs that are currently commissioned by HEIW. People will be familiar with the fact that HEIW, working with our partners in shared services, are required to implement Welsh Government policy in the form of the NHS Wales bursary. This bursary was revised, this policy was revised in 2017 and included at that point a requirement for those that took the Welsh bursary to work for 2 years in Wales at point of registration if they did a 3-year programme, and slightly less if they did a 2-year programme. So the outputs from the revised policy were able to join the workforce in 2020. Looking at AHP and healthcare science, whilst this was implemented for other professions such as nursing and ODP in 2020, AHP and healthcare science, due to the pandemic situation predominantly, streamlining, which is a job matching process that links student preferences to available vacancies across Wales, was not implemented. That led to a loss of some students that we had trained in Wales from employment in Wales. Recognising that this was not a situation that we wished to continue, we implemented at pace streamlining, this job matching of student preferences to employment vacancies across Wales at pace over the late autumn and spring of this year, following timelines that fitted well with normal recruitment patterns. Where we are now, and it's important to note that this remains a changing picture, that we are currently able to report that of the 484 AHP and healthcare science students that were eligible to enter the streamlining by virtue of the fact that they had undertaken programs in Wales, we have now appointed over 380 students to employment in Wales. We are currently exploring where the remainder, roughly 100 students, are. But it's important to note that a number of those students are in jobs in local authorities. So our colleagues in shared services are linked to the NHS, but they currently do not link with some of the other ways in which our students in Wales that we have trained can gain employment. Therefore, our intention is to update those figures on a daily basis. We recognise that because this was implemented at pace and in a still a continuing pandemic situation, that the intended consequences, that is successful employment into jobs in Wales, may also have some unanticipated consequences. So we are embarking now on a comprehensive evaluation across all stakeholder groups, and I'm very pleased to report that all stakeholder groups are very happy to participate in this evaluation, and we're able to gain a breadth of information which identifies a number of successes of the scheme as well as some opportunities for us to learn. Our intention is to provide a paper to our executive in the middle of June, which will provide a final update on the numbers through this streamlining and also the evaluation, which will be used to inform the process that we will work with next year, as we have students now in train who have taken the Welsh bursary until 2025. Welsh bursary is very important to students in Wales, and currently over 89% of students that study in Wales take the Welsh bursary, although somewhere in the region of 50% of our students are Welsh domiciled. So I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Alex?
Thanks, Chair. Just to support Angela's verbal update, really. I think that, first of all, to thank Angela and the team, really, for having to manage what has been actually a huge change in practice for the system, not just for us in Health Education Improvement Wales, but for all the partners that Angela has just mentioned as well. And to do that in two graduating years that have been impacted by a pandemic has been probably one of our bigger challenges that we didn't realise at the time. So I think that's been an incredible amount of work that's gone into managing this process, and I think it's given us a real opportunity to step back and to think about how we should be doing graduate recruitment in Wales. So although it's just a sort of a clause in a policy on the one hand, actually it is the opportunity, I think, to take a much more collective and systematic approach to this issue going forward, and to really ensure that we're joining up workforce planning, education commissioning and the recruitment pipeline in a much better way going forward. And of course, we don't have a baseline to compare last year with anyway, because prior to that, we wouldn't have known what was happening to graduates in Wales. So last year is our baseline now, if you like. And as Angela has pointed out, we've been trying different ways to try and make sure that we improve on that first baseline. And I'm sure that with the work that comes out of the evaluation now for next year, we will be able to do even better as well. I think that, you know, the time is right when we look around across the rest of the UK and look at the different bursary options or equivalents that are being put into place. It is a good time for us to make sure that the offer in Wales maintains its attractiveness. And so, you know, we will be providing advice and information to Welsh Government to see if they want to consider how to improve that bursary offer as well for our future students in Wales, and to make sure that that future pipeline for the workforce is as healthy as possible.
Thanks, Alex. So can I open it up for comments or questions to Angela? Can't see any hands. Okay, so in that case, we'll look forward to the report, and you'll get that to us next week.
Yes, yes, Chair, this has become my passion. I have to be entirely honest now. So the report will, I'm hoping will be with you at this side of the bank holiday weekend.
Okay, and is there any intention to survey the people who've graduated in the last year and this year, to look at their views of the process and the outcomes?
We've certainly in the evaluation included students that are currently participating in the scheme, and obviously those that have successfully been appointed are very, very positive about this scheme, and that their commitment to work in Wales has been realised. Regarding the students for last year, we need to, following the evaluation that we are currently doing, which is focus much more on the experience of those that have participated in streamlining, rather than the true impact of streamlining, because of course the graduates will not commence employment until June, and some of those students that we have been job matched will not in fact commence their employment till the late autumn. So we need to look at, based on this initial evaluation, a more in-depth evaluation, minded all the time that this is a Welsh Government policy. Therefore we have to look at our focus within that evaluation to look at its impact on the workforce.
But I think it's a win-win if we can match a good experience and with a good outcome for both the student and the workforce itself.
Very much so, and I think it's also important to note the extensive work that many of our health board colleagues have undertaken with us this year, to ensure that there are sufficient vacancies for our graduates. As Alex identified, the numbers of students that we train are based on the workforce plans submitted by health boards, and HEIW is ideally placed to join up the education and workforce components of that commissioning. So there is work ahead for all of us on this. And I personally think it's hugely, hugely exciting to be part of a student's first experience of work as a registrant in the workforce of Wales, which is fundamentally what this is about.
I think you're a master of understatement there. I think it is going to be a challenge and very interesting. Tina.
Thanks. One question just came to mind as you were talking, Angela. I just wondered whether there's a possibility to look at some statistical information to do some comparisons, because my understanding was that first destination information was part of the education contract for nursing in Wales ahead of streamlining event, and I just wondered whether we would be able to see the impact of the streamlining for the nursing profession, given that it was the one that was set up and running, and to match that with the first destination, just to see if there has been an impact. Thanks, Chair.
So the timing of nurse streamlining, as we'll appreciate, is slightly later than the AHP streamlining. I do know from last year that over 90, we educated 907 nurses and midwives, and over 90% of those were recruited into employment in Wales. So we can do that, certainly that high level comparison. As we move forward with the new contracts linked to our strategic review phase 1, we are obliging universities to also provide us with much more detailed information than is currently available to us, apart from that baseline statistic around general graduate employability. But we do have some data that we certainly can begin to do some comparative analysis on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Can't see any hands, so I'm asking that we note this report and we look forward to the further report and update that we'll have in the near future. Thank you, Angela. Thank you,
Chair. Thank you.
And now we've got agenda item 3.2, which is an update on HEIW's role in leading national programmes. Julie, are you leading on this?
I think that's me again to start with.
Is it right?
It is me to start on this, but also this particular paper that's before us contains information from across a number of directorates. So I will start, and Julie may well join me partway through. So this is a really important paper before us today, which talks about the transfer of 7 national programmes of work that have joined HEIW, Chair, in the last year. 4 of those sitting within the Nursing Directorate, within the Workforce Transformation team, and 3 within our Workforce Directorate. I'll just provide some highlights as the papers have been available, and then we would be happy to take questions. So importantly, within the Workforce Transformation team, these 4 programmes of work, nurse staffing, healthcare science, AHP, and Wales Optometry, have joined us in HEIW. Nurse staffing came to us from Public Health Wales, and it's an exciting year for the nurse staffing team, who were formed as a consequence of the Nurse Staffing Wales Act in 2016, because it is the year in which the first set of reports across Wales are produced. So that team has been very busy. And it's fair to say that the programmes of work are being extended from just adult hospital care, looking at paediatrics, and we now have staff focused on mental health and health visiting joining that team. The Healthcare Science Framework came into HEIW from the collaborative this October. And again, people around the call will know we have also successfully appointed our Head of Healthcare Science Transformation. So the Healthcare Science Framework, the Looking Forward Framework, is an extensive piece of work which sets out the vision and direction for healthcare science for the future. And importantly, I think builds on the outstanding contribution that our healthcare science colleagues have contributed during the recent pandemic. Importantly, this framework focuses on bands 2 to 9. And the healthcare science community, as many know, is a very diverse community with over 52 different professions. Our AHP framework, this is the 3rd framework that's come into HEIW, came over to us at the start of the year, and the programme, the project document has had approval, and we are now focusing on moving forward in delivering the aims and ambitions of the AHP framework. And that framework is particularly important for us in HEIW due to the matrix working opportunities that provides us, and its links with not just planned recovery, but other important streams of work around the ambitions of the NHS. And then most recently, Optometry has joined us, and this is we have a head of Optometry Transformation, and although the paper may not have made this specifically clear, this work is hugely integrated with the planned recovery care for eye care health and with the education reforms that are taking place in optometry. The funding for the two frameworks, and again, to make this clear, the AHP and healthcare science frameworks are frameworks of many years, and the funding for the AHP framework is currently 2 years, and we are working with our colleagues in Welsh Government to look at the annual funding that we currently get for healthcare science. 3 programmes have come in from Julie's directorate: the Widening Access Programme, Train, Work, Live, and the Staff Survey. And I wondered, Julie, did you want me to talk about those now, or would you like to take over at this point? I can do either.
Thanks, Angela. I'm happy to pick up the baton from here if that's okay.
Thank you.
I think the paper's pretty self-explanatory. These programmes are probably less complex than the ones that Angela has mentioned, in the sense that we've inherited proposals and programmes already in place from Welsh Government. So we are navigating our way through, particularly Widening Access and Train, Work, Live, to see actually what has been spent to date, where that money has been used, and how that money could be repositioned or broadened out for the future. The staff survey, which is the third of the programmes that came across, was what I would call an orphan piece of work, sitting in the ether of NHS Wales, and I think the creation of HEIW gives us the opportunity to give that work a home. So we will be looking to develop and take forward staff surveying across NHS Wales for the future, and that will both include the national staff surveys, which is the one that the Minister is particularly interested in, because that looks at employee engagement across a range of factors and is comparable data with previous years. But alongside that, we'll also be looking to do more frequent pulse surveys and to support NHS organisations to take advantage of those surveys if they wish to supplement what they're doing locally. So hopefully that's enough information. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Do you need to come back in, Angela?
No, thank you, Chair. That really concludes our presentation about these 7 programmes of work that have come into HEIW, and as is clear, have clear links with our workforce strategy for Wales. Thank you.
This is no small agenda.
No, indeed.
Okay, can I open it up for questions or comments from board members? Oh, Alex first.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just, I suppose, to make the comment that Angela's just mentioned now. I mean, a number of these pieces of work were done before the workforce strategy was launched, and so it does give us the opportunity that in taking those pieces of work forward, we use those 7 themes of the workforce strategy to really use as the hooks for all of that work, and that helps us then make sure that we make the most of the resources that we've got and the expertise we've got in HEIW to not reinvent the wheel for every single profession and every single service. So there are, whilst it's a lot of work to take on, there are some real benefits for us in taking that work on, and I think that, you know, we are in the right place to drive that forward now that the workforce strategy is in place.
Okay, thank you. John?
Thanks, Chris. A general point, it was really about whether there are accountability frameworks in place between these programmes and Welsh Government so that they can review that they're getting what they want from these programmes, and we can actually account that we are delivering it. So it does say in the report we're working on governance structures, but that's the first question, is are we going to have frameworks in place? Second question is more specific. It's about Train, Work, Live. It reports there that the programme looks at GPs and psychiatry trainees. And I wonder if there's any scope to look at other shortage professions outside that psychiatry. I mean, I was thinking possibly of pathology, other specialties where we have shortages, or is it just limited to those 2 areas? Thank you.
Okay, so do you want to come in on that, Julie?
Yeah, thanks for that. So certainly with the Train Work Live programme, when it was originally designed in government, it was designed to tackle those two specialities in particular. So that was the GPs and psychiatry, but since then it has been expanded out to other professional groups. So I think that may just be a nuance of the drafting, so apologies for that. But certainly we've used it to sort of promote pharmacy opportunities, midwifery, and each year we're looking at actually how we could position it to support support the pressure areas or the hotspots. In terms of the governance around that, there is a national board for it, but we're quite clear that government has actually asked us to lead on this work now. So I think we've got quite a bit of freedom to act, provided we do that in partnership with NHS Wales organisations, because this is about promoting the opportunities for Wales as a whole. The staff survey, there's a national partnership forum group, which includes social partners as well, so that the governance is already in place for that. Widening access, there has been a group, and we're just looking at the membership of that now, because I think it's fair to say that some of the money has been pretty medically dominated, so we're needing to look at actually how we broaden that out more generally, and you can see in the paper a reference to pharmacy. So I think the governance for those three are actually pretty well established. They just need a little bit of tweaking. Angela's probably going to want to come in on the other programmes.
Want to do that, Angela?
Thank you, Chair. I did note that Alex has her hands up, so I don't know if I'm about to say something that Alex is about to say. So I wonder if I just defer to her for this, and then I'll come back in, if that's okay. Thank you.
Alex?
John's question on governance arrangements and accountabilities is a really key one, because a lot of these programs were transferring in over the last year while the pandemic was on, and some of the normal governance arrangements were on hold, really, as people obviously were dealing with other priorities. So that is something we've been dealing with over the last couple of months, to sort of almost reboot and go back to basics, make sure we've got clear project initiation documents for all of these pieces of work, that set out the deliverables, but also set out the governance arrangements, make it clear what our interface is with particularly Welsh Government, but also some of the peer groups will also have a key interest in this, as well as other external stakeholders. So I think we've been having sort of deep dives into each of these areas of work as an exec team and with other key people around the organisation to make sure that we've done that, and we're just in the process now of putting those arrangements into place. But yeah, it has been an important thing to make sure that we reflected that shift in responsibility.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I've got Push and then Tina.
Thank you, Chair. There are a couple of things I was going to say. One has been touched on already by John about the incentives for medical staff, and Julie has answered that. We're always looking at those particular areas where there's a shortage in Wales. So that's an ongoing process. The other thing I'd like to say is that we're involved in a number of sort of work streams in trying to assist individual specialty areas, and one springs to mind is critical care, which I jointly chair with somebody from the Critical Care Network. And the Nurse Staffing Act and the work going on that has a big impact on how we develop those workforce plans, because it's being law, and how it would apply to some of the secondary care areas. So I think it's really useful that it sits with us, because I think that it ties in very well with some of our other work that's being done in those areas. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you. Thanks,
Push. Tina?
Thanks. John's just reminded me of something else when he raised the question about governance, and I just wondered, in relation to governance around the shortage professions and the links with the Home Office, whether that will still sit with Welsh Government, Alex, or whether that will actually transfer with us to do that liaison, especially when we look at things like professions that go on the shortage profession list, and how we would link in with HEE and NIPEC and Scotland as well. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Oh, have you got your hand up, Alex?
No, Julie did.
Oh, sorry. Julie?
Yeah, so just to say in response to Tina's comment that that's still sitting with government at the moment, but we have had discussions with them about actually the intelligence that we're gathering as an organisation and what we might be able to do to support that work, but at the moment there's no plans to transfer it to us.
In terms of the governance questions that we've gone through, are we going to be able to have a neat little wiring diagram so that we can actually visibly see some of the join-ups and therefore identify some of the gaps going forward and some of the complexity that sits in there?
Yes, certainly, Chair. That is in fact the plan. So yesterday, for example, we had a really helpful meeting with in relation to healthcare science, which had Rob Orford and Dee Ripley at. It had the Leads for Healthcare Science in the health boards and ourselves, beginning to look at a couple of worked examples so we can actually have practical routes to illustrate the governance structure. So our plan is absolutely a wiring diagram for that. As Alex has said, and the paper illustrates, these are complex areas of work, and some of the specific areas of work are in fact very patient facing. So we need to make sure that we have the governance structure that reflects the relevant accountabilities, and our decision to use a couple of worked examples I think will be very helpful in ensuring that actually gives us the governance structure that is robust and correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? I mean, this has been a fascinating report. Now, it's a compendium of things, but one of the tricks is, and I think the workforce strategy and our education strategy means that it's the sum of the parts we're looking at. So what does this mean for care directly? And clearly the Nursing Act is one example where it has a huge impact. And I think keeping track on progress is something that the board would be really interested in. So as well as the governance wiring diagram, are we doing what it says on the tin would be something I think that perhaps needs to come to board at at the opportune moment so that we can track success or challenge, and again interpreting what the whole of that means, the so what question. So thank you everybody. I'm going to ask that the board notes this this update.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Angela. We now move on to the feast, that is the report of the Director of Finance, Eifion.
Diolch. If I can quickly take colleagues through salient points of the finance report. The financial position of HEIW after month one reporting is some £91,000 underspent. The detail behind that is included within the report, but briefly there's a very small overspend of £22,000 in pay, but an underspend in non-pay and commissioning, producing the overall underspend position. We will be undertaking close monitoring of our financial position as we progress through the year, with undertaking regular deep dives quarterly to make sure that we've got very accurate positions being reported and forecast in order to inform the board. As colleagues will also know, the accounts for last year is under audit, and we will be bringing details of that audit and financial position to a future board meeting. Turning to the public sector payment policy position that we achieved in March, colleagues will remember we had a slow start in last year, which took us the whole year to make up. But this year, month one's position shows that we had nearly 99% of non-NHS invoices paid within 30 days, and all 100% of NHS invoices were paid within 30 days. So hopefully we've learned the lesson of last year and to actually keep ahead of the target as the year progresses. And with that, Chairman, I would ask the board to note the financial position, the explanations, the capital and the balance sheet, and the PSPP position for the board at month 1. Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to switch my microphone on again. Are there any questions or comments, please, for Eifion regarding that report? I can see John.
Thanks, Eifion. Just to say, well done in terms of the public sector pay policy. That's really good result. Well done to everybody involved in that. I think I'm right in saying, Eifion, that month 1 is a bit of a hybrid month anyway, isn't it? You can't really draw clear conclusions from the first month of the year. So, okay, we note the underspend, but obviously as future months data is available, we'll have a clearer picture.
Yes, you are correct. Although I would put greater reliance on the pay and non-pay position, pay particularly because it derives from the payroll, which should go through routinely between month 12 of last year, month 1 and 2 of this new year. So the pay position is probably accurate. The non-pay position is accurate. The commissioning position, yes, we'll need a lot more information before we can ascertain our true commissioning expenditure position against our budgets, really. But again, what I would say to that, I am not anticipating that there will be a financial difficulty for HEIW in this coming year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, please? No? Okay, so what you're asking us to do then, Eifion, you're asking us to note the financial position reported for HEIW at the end of month 1?
Correct.
Yeah. Can I have your approval, please? Oh, I need you to note it. And then the summarized explanation of key variations by directorate.
Yep.
And the capital allocation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the balance sheet position.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that it for you, Eifion?
That's, well, I have a later item, but yes, that's it for this report, Chair.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Right. And now we're going to go to agenda item 4.2. Is that right? The end of year annual performance report.
Diolch, Chair.
Hello, Nick. You all right?
Yeah, fine. You okay?
Yes, excellent. Go on then. We look forward to this.
Thank you. So I'm presenting the comprehensive end of year performance report for the organisation to the board today. And we've done a slightly different format with a longer cover paper, which we'll also use for the annual report, the performance section of that. In year, the board will be aware that we strengthened our performance management arrangements with the approval of our performance framework, and we've implemented that and have good audit assurance on our performance management arrangements as well through the year. It has been a highly unusual year, which goes without saying, and that's meant that we've revised our plans to remain agile throughout the year, in line with Welsh Government guidance and the publication of our operational plans. And again, we've had good audit assurance on our planning arrangements, particularly for the Q3 and 4 operational plan. Having said that, we have a long list of achievements, and there's a summary at the back of the report. So as well as contributing to the system response on COVID, we have maintained good progress with delivering our strategic aims and objectives. And the evidence is provided to the board that there's good assurance on the delivery of our Q3 and 4 plans. The year hasn't been without its challenges, as we've talked about previously in the meeting. So there has been a COVID impact on training, which is outlined in the report, and the board has received a separate report on that previously. But I think it is testament to our teams across the organisation that the effects have been mitigated as far as possible. We've already talked in the meeting about the version streamlining issues, but that is noted in the report. From a performance point of view, we used our escalation procedures appropriately to manage that issue, and the issue has now been stood down from escalation, and the board received that verbal report on that earlier in the meeting. And the report also highlights that we're not where we'd like to be on 2 of our workforce indicators, and they're a high priority now in Q1 of this year to improve those. We have also adapted our quality management processes in terms of quality management of education and training significantly through the year because of the pandemic, and the report provides a summary of where we are with those as well. In summary, the informal feedback from Welsh Government is that there is confidence in our ability to plan, and the growing confidence and evidence in our ability to deliver. And I think that's evidence of, again, in the previous report, partly why we've been asked to take additional programmes on and other areas of work that we can contribute to as well. And it stands us in good stead, in a good place for the delivery of this year's plan. And as we go forward, if the pandemic eases, potentially into the preparation and delivery of an IMTP in future years. The achievements and progress for this year are testament to the expertise and resilience of our staff. And I think we just pay credit to everybody across the organisation for that as well. So I just ask the board to note the report for assurance on the organisational performance in the last financial year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nicola. Can I open this for questions or comments by board members, please? Tina?
Chair, can I just say that I really found this report immensely satisfying, Nicola. I have to share that when I start to read a report, I start asking questions and putting questions in, and I looking for the answers, and I give up on this paper because there were just so much information. And I really do need to congratulate you on first of all, the style. I don't give comments like this very often at board, and I really do feel that this is an excellent paper. And I think as a team, it's so fantastic to read and to see the impact that HEIW and the staff are having, but more importantly, the way you put this report together is outstanding. So thank you.
I presume you don't want me to get any more comments after that, Nicola? Huh? But are there any other comments or questions for Nicola?
I've got my hand up.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to echo everything Tina has said, but add that the audit committee was very pleased, Nicola, that when the internal auditors reviewed our performance process, we had substantial assurance. And that, I think, given that is it 2 years now that we've been developing this? It's just 2 years, isn't it? So we've now achieved substantial assurance, and we were very pleased. So well done.
Any other questions or comments? For me, one of the things that I've witnessed is how we've had to work with regulators and how the work to keep education and training to mitigate the risks of COVID, how we've worked together with the regulators and with our partners. I don't know whether you want to say anything about that, Push or Angela, because I think the report is one thing, the effort behind getting to that position is another, and I think it's understated isn't the word. It's definitely taken a lot of effort, and I think some brave decisions.
I'm happy to say something, and then I'm sure Push will also wish to respond. I think we were very fortunate in Wales that we did already have good working relationships across Wales with our universities and health boards and with the regulator, but that has achieved new heights of collaboration and mutual respect for each other, and I think provides an outstanding platform going forward. And a simple example would be around the work that the education and commissioning team have done in relation to student placements, recognizing that perhaps some students during the pandemic couldn't undertake the placement that they might normally do for their own health reasons, but rather than delay their course progression, virtual placements where they could still meet the learning outcomes that were compliant with the requirements of the regulator were developed. And then those have now been integrated into business as usual. The opportunities for students to participate in mass vaccination centres from a learning opportunity has now been rolled out to colleagues in Scotland and England as examples of best practice. And again, that was done with the support of the regulators, the universities and the health boards. So looking ahead, I am hugely optimistic that the way in which education and training moves forward as a collaborative will know no bounds, to be honest. Good communication and quality learning at the heart of all those conversations. Sorry, Push, you I'm sure want to say something about medicine.
Well, medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and the revalidation services. That I mean, what I really like about this is that we've been sort of doing all of this in all the places in my areas, in your areas, Angela. But it's not just about that. It's about the whole exec team. It's about all the senior leadership team. It pulls together all the work that's being done collaboratively and reflects where we were and still are, even though we've been working virtually, where we were heading when we were all in the office. And I think that, you know, speaking with the regulators, we had a good relationship with them before COVID. But as you say, Chris and Angela and everyone, that's been solidified, and we've learned from the other nations too, and they've learned from us. So I think there's just so much in here that that pulls together the different aspects of how we reach, how we deliver our services and embed them into the wider NHS. I think is it just does make you feel as though yeah, it's all coming together, if you like. So thank you to Nicola for doing that.
So thank you, Angela and Push. Alex, for me, this report is a sort of watershed moment. You can see where we are now, and not just the good, but some of the challenges. But you can see opportunities there, and I think we hear about learning the lessons from COVID. I think we need to have some line in the sand that we don't want to go back to, and we want to build on. And it seems to me that building on these relationships with our partners and with the regulators is one of the key challenges for us to keep those tops spinning going forwards and become part of something that gives great experience for students and great experience for patients. So, you know, I think for me, the so what of that report is there's some great things we can continue to do to make it even better. So I look forward to that end of things coming in the next year or so. So can I ask that we note this report? It seems such a small thing for the board to be doing, but well done for pulling it together, Nicola, and well done to the team and all the effort, the combined effort that puts this report in a position that it's in. Thank you very much. So we've now got the procurement compliance annual report from Eifion, agenda item 4.3.
Thank you, Chair. This is a report, the annual report that we're required to bring to the board, showing the procurement compliance matters that have been brought to the audit committee during the year, and the items considered and the actions required to have been discussed as well within the audit and assurance committee. It's evident from the work that's being done and the performance of the organisation that we're maturing in our procurement expertise and competence, and I would expect that to actually progress with further effort and education during this current year. So I would ask the board to note the report for the assurance that it provides.
Any questions or comments on that report? No. Can I ask that? I can't see any hands. Are there any hands I've missed? No, I don't think so. So can I ask that we note the procurement compliance annual report, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Then we've now got agenda item 4.4, which is the board's self-assessment against the corporate governance code. Dafydd.
Ocê, diolch yn fawr iawn y cadeirydd. Felly mae'r papur yma'n gofyn i'r bwrdd nodi'r hunan asesiad o gydymffurfiad gyda'r cod llywodraethu corfforaethol. Felly o ran cefndir, mae'n ofynnol i AaGIC ddarparu adroddiad ar cydymffurfio gyda'r cod yn ei ddatganiad llywodraethu blynyddol, a mae'r asesiad yma ynghlwm yn atodiad 1 o'r papur. Bydd aelodau yn nodi nad oes unrhyw fethiant i gydymffurfio â'r cod yn cael ei hadrodd yn yr asesiad, mae o fodd bynnag yn amlygu nifer o feysydd lle dylid canolbwyntio arnynt y flwyddyn nesaf. A mae'r rhain yn cynnwys cryfhau'r broses hunan asesu'r bwrdd fel ei bod yn adlewyrchu AaGIC fel corff addysg a hyfforddiant. Ac yn ail, datblygu'r broses gynefino ar gyfer aelodau newydd ac ar gyfer aelodau newydd o'r pwyllgorau. Felly i gloi, da ni'n gofyn i aelodau i nodi'r asesiad, os gwelwch yn dda.
Diolch, Dafydd. Mae'n glir iawn. Now then, are there any questions or comments regarding the corporate governance code self-assessment? I think independent members have discussed this clearly, and we did have a session together with officer members. I think the important thing is that we know we are going to be having 2 new independent members join the board following due process. And I really think we need to make sure that today we've seen how our agenda is expanding and how it is impacting. It's very important that new members joining are not only able to establish a knowledge of the organisation, but actually able to express themselves as independent members. So, and of course the officer members that are joining, including Lisa. So can I commend this report and ask you to note it, please?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. Then we've got agenda item 4.5 to receive the key issue report from the Audit Assurance Committee on the 7th of April. John?
Thanks, Chair. And I'm presenting this as Vice Chair of the Audit Committee in Jill's absence. The report is straightforward. I thought I might highlight the following. The annual fraud plan was approved, and the audit committee considered in April the Audit Wales report called Doing It Differently, which was a review of the way the NHS in Wales has responded to COVID and presented a series of recommendations. And the audit committee would like the board to consider whether at a development session, it might want to have a look at that report, see if there's anything we can derive from it. We also received our annual governance statement, and we reviewed the risk register as we do as a routine. So the report is for noting, Chair.
Thank you, John. Any comments or questions? I think it would be a really good idea if that report, John, came to a development session. So, can we put that on our list, please?
It is on the forward work programme, Chair.
It is already. Excellent. You're ahead of us, David. Well done. And then I'm asking you, therefore, to note that report. And then there's the agenda item 4.52, which is the Audit and Assurance Committee held on the 6th of May, sorry.
Yeah, it's set similarly, Chair. But the main focus of this meeting, of course, was the end of year assessments, which is what we do at this time of year, at the end of the financial year. So we received the draft report of the head of internal audit, and we're pleased to see that there was a reasonable assurance overall. We received the report of the senior information risk owner, and we were pleased to see the compliance there, but also identified that training compliance, and we discussed this earlier, is a point we need to be particularly focused on. We received from IBM the first draft of the annual accounts, and the audit committee is meeting again on the 9th of June, I think, to receive the final accounts prior to coming to the board. And we also considered our own annual report as a committee. Finally, we looked at the remuneration report, and a comment was made there that as an organization, a number of our executive director posts are secondees, and we just wondered whether, as we move forward, there will be plans in place to move towards substantive posts to reduce the risk associated with that. So that's a quick summary, Chris. I think I'm asking you to note the report, but also to specifically note the annual report of the audit committee.
Thank you, John. Indeed, we will be considering plans for the future in terms of the substantive posts shortly. So are there any questions or comments to make other than that from John's report? Okay, so we're being asked to note the content of the report for assurance. You happy to note?
Yeah.
And we're asked to note the Audit and Assurance Committee Annual Report 2020-21.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. David, we've now moving to agenda item 4.6, in committee decisions.
So this is a summary of the in-committee decisions that were made at the last board meeting, and the paper's just for noting.
Okay, they're there for everyone to see. Can I ask you to note them, please?
Yes.
I've had no notice of any other urgent business. We have a HEIW board to be held on the 10th of June, in which we'll receive the annual accounts and audit. And we have a board development session on the 17th of June, and that date coincides with the NHS Confederation conference. And as part of that session, we will be joining that conference. So I'd like to thank everybody for today's meeting, for their contributions. And I'd like to wish Angela all the best in the future. And
Take care.
I'd like to say, enjoy the bank holiday. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.